Hello students, on behalf of Next IAS, I welcome you to the next session of Daily News Decoded. Today we have picked up 5 articles for your benefit. These articles are namely in 2 sections. In decoded sections, we will be discussing the welfare that India needs, an article written by Mr. Gulati, and we will be discussing MSP in it in very detailed manner. The second article which we will be picking in the decoded section will be combating spam. Recently you have heard this message on your calls about telecalls and spams. We will be discussing it through mains perspective, and then in prelims perspective we will have 3 articles. So let's jump into the discussion. Here is the first article. The first article. So today's first article relates to Indian agriculture. Usually the writer Mr. Gulati, he writes articles on agriculture very regularly, and we will be covering him, or let's say his writing fairly regularly. Today's article is titled "The Welfare That India Needs." So obviously it comes under Indian agriculture GS3 of your mains section, and this particular article is talking about MSP reforms. If you talk about MSP and agriculture, or let's say agriculture marketing, so there have been many questions. Every year, every other year, there is a question. This particularly 2018 question, if you look at it, it says that what do you mean by MSP, and how will MSP rescue the farmers from low income trap? So I'll tell you that we have covered MSP in earlier one of the D&D session, and we will put that link in the description. You can watch that. But we covered that in prelims perspective. Today we are covering it in mains perspective. And if I can talk about what we will be covering on that note, so we will be seeing why this is in news, and what is the immediate background, or let's say context of this discussion. Then we will discuss some MSP basics. What is MSP? People talk about MSP all the time, but you may not have clarity. You may have clarity. We will be quickly going through it. We will see some historical background to MSP. Then we will talk about a little about food subsidy, what kind of burden we have over food subsidy, and we will see the MSP formula. We will see MSP trends, and the role of MSP in green revolution. You know that India has become independent food producer. We can feed ourselves. It was not so back in the day. We will see some associated issues regarding, let's say, green revolution or MSP, or both combined. We will see what reforms we can introduce or we can talk about. We will see some challenges to a particular reform, that is legalizing the MSP. That is in news recently. There is a protest going on, and there has been introduction of this national policy framework on marketing, on agriculture marketing. So this national policy framework on agriculture marketing, the draft is come out. We will discuss it, this draft, in upcoming videos. Today we will not take it up. We will discuss it later on. Let this issue fold much more, and then we will see some good way forward. So after watching this discussion, you will be able to write a good answer on this particular topic. So let's jump into it. The first thing first, let me give you a historical background, because the immediate background is, I have discussed, there are protests going on. Farmers are demanding that you make MSP legal, and recently we have seen farm laws have been repealed, and the immediate background, if I can talk about, is that government is considering to take a consensus, or let's say consensus view on this very thorny issue. This issue is very critical for India, because India is still a largely agricultural economy. Large part of our population still dependent on agriculture, lives in rural areas, and recently we have been facing a lot of distress in rural economy, be it a stagnated income, or let's say lack of infrastructure and services available to rural people. So this is immediate background. Now let me talk about historical background. So the story starts with our independence only, and we were struggling to feed our own population. There were famines even after independence. There were famines. So we were taking help from countries like US in the form of PL 480 program. In this program, they were sending us food grains, but these food grains were not independent. They were sent with a purpose. So, for example, criticizing Vietnam War, Indian state has said something. In reaction to that statement, the US uh, prevented, sending those grains to India. So they were politically attached. Some strings were attached. So in 1964, there were some famines. There were wars going on. I'll not go in much detail, but in the 60s we had faced some challenges. And in 1964, we established a committee, the JHA committee, mandated to look after the prices of food grain. That committee recommended that we should establish a agriculture price commission. That was established, rightly so, in 1965. This commission recommended the first MSP in 1967. Later on, this commission only got restructured into the present CACP, which you might have heard, the Commission for Agriculture Costs and Prices, which recommends the CCEA, the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, the MSP. So we will discuss how MSP is finally decided in later slides. Then in 2004, we have this National Commission on Agriculture under the great MS Swaminathan, who recently died tragically, and they were basically concentrating on farmer distress and suicides, and they only recommended this MSP, this C2 plus FL MSP, 1.5 times of C2 plus FL. We will discuss all these things in upcoming slides. So this National Commission was established. It recommended certain things. Then Shanta Kumar Committee came about in 2014 for FCI reforms. FCI is procuring the largest procurer of food grains. It wastes a lot of food grains. It is allegedly one of the most corrupt organizations. A lot of food wastage takes place there, and there is a lot of financial mismanagement in this organization. Lately it might have improved a little bit, but it is so. In 2014, there is Shanta Kumar Committee on FCI reforms, and then later, the latest, if you talk about, there are PM Asha, there are other initiatives, and the MSP increase has been announced very regularly by the government. So this is a brief timeline over MSP. You should have an idea about it. And there are two organizations, that is FCI, which was established in 1965, and then there is National Agriculture Corporation, Cooperative Marketing Federation of India. You can understand it is basically promoting cooperative marketing in Indian agriculture. It was established in 1958. There is one more organization which you call it APEDA. There is a homework for you. You should know what APEDA does and when it was established. So what FCI does, you all know. Food Corporation of India procures majorly wheat and paddy under MSP scheme, and the National Agriculture Cooperative Marketing promotes cooperative marketing in Indian agriculture. Moving ahead, there are some basics that you should know about MSP. The very first thing which you should know is what is MSP. It is nothing but a declared price by the government on which they promise that we will buy. We will procure the food grains depending. There are limits, that the time limit is there, that between this time and this time we will procure. So there is a timeline that goes on with MSP, and also the grade, or let's say the condition of the crop, or let's say the name of the crop or the quality of the crop, that is also put as a condition. So this is basically nothing but minimum support price. What is how it is decided? So minimum support price is decided by a process in which certain conditions, or let's say certain criteria, are taken into consideration. There are organizations which are responsible for this. The very first organization which we talked about is CACP. This is a commission which takes into account the production costs, the international costs, the impact of MSP on the market, the impact of MSP on the consumer. All these things they consider into account, and then they recommend the MSP to the government. So what is the government? This is Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, chaired by Prime Minister. So CCEA then takes a call on MSP and declares MSP for so and so price. Let me tell you why MSP is taken into consideration so much. Imagine there is a bumper crop. So recently you have seen the prices of tomato and onions were going over the roof. So let's say this is the price, 20 rupees a kg. I am taking, this is just an example. So 20 rupees kg, and then there is price of, let's say, 80 rupees kg. So this is market. According to the production, the consumer will pay, the farmer will gain or lose. So 20 rupees kg or 80 rupees kg, farmer will see to it. Government has no role in it. However, under MSP, what government does is it sets us a level that is called MSP, minimum support price. If the market prices fell below this MSP, then government promises that we will buy. This is the idea behind MSP. Not that government will buy on MSP from every farmer. It's not like that. It's the rescue mechanism, ideally. But recently, so it has been so that it has been demanded as a right that okay, you buy on MSP. So MSP, the level of MSP has been very high. So the declaration price under MSP has been very high, and that is why farmers are demanding, because it is a assured return that you know that your produce will be sold on this price. Market price might be lower also, but MSP keeps it open. Whether you can go to market also, you can sell at MSP also. Moving ahead, the third point: what are the crops that are covered under MSP? So there are so many crops that are covered. The number is 22. We will see these crops. So these crops are, let me come to the crops. Here is the list. So there are Kharif crops, there are Rabi crops, and there are other crops which are covered under MSP. So Kharif crops are usual crops, the paddy, wheat. Let's say Kharif crops, let's focus on Kharif crop, not go into that direction. So paddy, see here only. So we have paddy, we have jowar, we have bajra, we have ragi, maize, tuar, moong, urad, groundnut, sunflower, soybean, sesame, Niger seed, cotton. There was a question on Niger seed in prelims 2023. Then we have wheat, barley, gram, masoor, rapeseed, safflower, and copra and jute. All these crops are under MSP. There is a question for you. There is one more crop not covered under MSP, but it has been given a assured price by the government. Which crop is this? I'll tell you the name. It is covered under FRP, Fair Remunerative Price. So tell me which crop is am I talking about? Now, how the procurement take place? It's a very good question that should come in your mind. So procurement take place through FCI, state government organizations. They basically procure. There is Cotton Commission of India, there is Jute Commission of India. There are other organizations which will procure. So majorly the government, or let's say the FCI and state government, they procure majorly the paddy and the wheat. गेहूं और चावल ही प्रोक्योर होते हैं मेजरली. अदर थिंग्स आर प्रोक्योर्ड इन अ डिफरेंट मैनर, नॉट द वे यू अंडरस्टैंड. सो फॉर एग्जांपल इन PM आशा scheme, certain things are procured. So here, let's say they may adopt for the difference paid. So for example, if in market the crop is being sold at 20, the MSP was 30. So the government will decide that 10 rupees we will pay. 10 rupees we will pay. You get 20 from market, 10 we will give. So it will match the MSP. So there are different methods of procurement. Majorly the wheat and the paddy are procured by the FCI. Now, so this is crops under MSP. Tell me which crop is FRP. So the fourth thing, let us discuss the fourth thing. It is Swaminathan Committee on MSP. And apart from this, let's take a look at the MSP formula adopted by the government. Very easy to understand. Hang on with me. Now imagine, I'll tell you the formulas later. First, let me discuss how the government is calculating MSP right now. You all might be knowing, but let me go through it very quickly. So there is a farmer who is basically paying for certain things. the direct cost. I'll call it explicit. You know that you have to spend directly. For example, seeds, you are buying seeds, you are buying fertilizer, and so on and so forth. Secondly, the farmer has, let's say, a tractor. So in economics we call it capital asset. Then you have land. You might have leased it, taken on rent from somebody, or you might have owned the land, or you are owning the land. So there is a farmer who is putting all these things, plus he is working on the farm, but he doesn't pay himself or herself salary. His or her family is also working, but they are also not getting paid. So this is unpaid labor. So we have explicit expenditures and we have implicit expenditures. Certain things which are used by the farmer, labor or capital or that land, but he is not getting paid for it, or it is not being accounted for it. And there are certain expenditures which the farmer takes place. For example, he buys seed and everything. So the government is basically calculating MSP in this manner. They are saying that whatever explicitly you are spending, they call it A2, and whatever labor you are doing, they call it FL. We will give you 1.5 times of this, because Swaminathan committee recommended 1.5 times of some cost, but Swaminathan committee recommended 1.5 times of C2. What is C2? C2 is called comprehensive cost. C2. What does more Swaminathan committee recommends? It recommends the implicit cost also. Implicit cost of which implicit cost? Beyond family labor, the land, the rent which could have gotten, which might have been there for the farmer, that rent and the interest on the capital asset. So this will become larger than what government is trying to give right now. So MSP formula between Swaminathan committee and the government. So government is using A2 plus FL, the explicit kharcha, and then the family labor, but Swaminathan committee recommends that you provide on implicit kharcha also, 1.5 times of it. Moving ahead, let me discuss what is the role of MSP in Green Revolution. The story was this, that we needed MSP to make farmers secure. We were not having enough food grains. That was the problem. We introduced this MSP. Basics we have just discussed about this MSP, how we are procuring, how we are giving assured prices to farmers. Now, what impact did this MSP has or had on Green Revolution? So what is Green Revolution? During the 1960s, 70s and 80s, we saw a rise in what? We saw a rise in food grain production of the tune of 500%. We have seen the rise in the food grain production of the 500%. So how did it impact the overall Green Revolution process? So basically we started using high yield variety seeds. These seeds led to production and food security because of this MSP only. Why? Because high yield variety seeds were costly. So farmers were provided an assurance that we will buy on particular MSP. We will buy on this price. No matter how much spending you do, we will calculate it and then we will give you the money back. So farmers felt confident and then they invested in machinery, irrigation and all these things. They took loans, they did everything because they knew that government will buy their product. They got institutional support. The FCI was there to procure. Then other organizations, for example, APIDA was there, which provided certain export help. So they got institutional support regarding agriculture marketing especially. Then there was regional impact because of MSP. So certain areas in India, for example, Punjab, Haryana and other parts, they benefited a lot from MSP. They started becoming the food basket of India. They started producing a lot of wheat and a lot of rice. obviously it reduced the risk on farmers. So this was the impact of MSP on green revolution. In my opinion, MSP was the game changer in terms of assuring farmers that they will get back their costs. Moving ahead, what were the issues that came about because of this MSP? So you see, when farmers were given assurance that you will get the right return for your produce, what will happen? So they will look for the crops. Those crops which are being assured by the government, they will grow those crops only, and they will try to maximize their production. So high yield variety seeds were there. So farmers started using fertilizers and a lot of water for those high yield variety seeds. So the writer, now we come to the article, the writer basically points out that the Food Corporation of India has mountains of rice stock that are almost 3 times the buffer stock norms. So the problem which we can extrapolate from here is that we have a lot of food now that is stocked, which is 3 times beyond the stock limits. Further, the writer says that the basket crops under MSP has expanded over time. MSP were always supposed to be indicative price, and the government would come to procure only if there was a serious crisis. So the writer says that the MSP right now talked as if this price has to be given by the government, was a rescue mechanism, that whenever the market failed, the MSP will come for the rescue. Further, the writer says that the legacy of open-ended procurement of wheat and rice in some state has continued till today. It has created an imbalance in the production basket. So the writer is saying that we have open procurement policy. What is open procurement policy? Open procurement policy is basically that whatever you produce, we will buy it on MSP. This is the basic of open procurement policy. This has led to production imbalances, meaning that we are producing too much of wheat and rice and buying it on MSP, incurring a lot of fiscal cost, but storing it in FCI, there the food is largely wasted sometimes. So this is what he is talking about the imbalance in the production basket. On the other hand, we have costly lentils. The dal is very costly. The vegetables are very costly. Other food crops are not there. We are dependent on oil seeds. So there is a skewed nature in production because of MSP. What else you can think of is that there is a fiscal burden because of MSP. Around the food basically subsidy forms one of the largest part of the budget. Further, there is economic inefficiencies. Why there is economic efficiencies? Imagine you are getting assured price of your production, and you know that whatever mechanical approach, or let's say whatever approach you are applying over production, that will be benefited. You will get the price. So you will not go for efficiencies, you will go for inefficiencies. Economy works on innovation. When market forces are there, you try to minimize your inefficiencies and try to produce at the lower cost. But if you are given an assured price, for example, you are producing a mobile phone and somebody says that we will buy in 10,000 rupees, you will not look after efficiencies that you produce in, let's say, 4,000 and get 10,000, or produce in 5,000, get 10,000. You will produce in whatever cost and you will get 10,000. So economic inefficiencies are there because of this assured pricing. Then lack of diversification is there. So because of MSP, the crops have become monocropping. For example, in Punjab and Haryana, we have monocropping in terms of wheat and rice. It has destroyed the land. It was one of the most productive land in the world, but now because of this monocropping and overuse of fertilizer, overuse of water, it has led to destruction of this soil. Further, there is crop concentration. What is crop concentration? Again, in India, there are certain areas where certain crops are only being grown, although naturally they might have had some other crops. Then there are environmental issues. These are relating to mainly two things. One is soil, other is water. Soil and water has been exploited. So the soil has become, or let's say, exhausted. It has been pumped through fertilizers, and the water tables are down because of free electricity. So let me write here. soil and water. Only two issues are there when it comes to environmental issues. Soil has been exhausted, and water basically given electricity, free electricity, there has been exploitation of water. Limited farmer beneficiaries. This is the most important point when it comes to issues with MSP. MSP has regional and farmer, or let's say disparities. So what is the regional disparity? You know that procurement of MSP crops is very limited to certain regions. For example, let me give you a region. Let me give you some data. So around 95% of farmers in Punjab, they got benefit of MSP. Whoever were basically cultivating paddy. So whoever was cultivating paddy, out of them 95% of them got benefit of MSP. In comparison to this, in Uttar Pradesh there is only 4% of beneficiaries. So 95% and 4%. So this is regional disparity. Also, the whole MSP scheme is benefited by only 6% of the farmers in India. Only 6%. So this regional disparity and limited farmer beneficiaries issue is there. Alright. Moving ahead, what reforms can be suggested? Let us go through them quickly. So the writer is suggesting certain reforms. The writer is saying that the entire MSP framework needs to revisit, not in the direction of making it legal, but freeing up prices of products as well as that of major inputs like fertilizer and power. Land market also need to be opened up. So the writer is saying that you free the agriculture from all these restrictions, not only the MSP but also the power subsidy and other things. Further, the writer is saying a highly regulated land market and the pricing of inputs and some outputs like rice and wheat with massive procurement is leading to huge inefficiencies in the system, the inefficiency that we talked about. Part of this problem stems from public distribution system that gives free wheat to almost 57% of the population, even as the government claims that it has lifted 248 million people out of poverty in last 10 years. So the writer is saying that on the one hand, the government is saying that we have pulled people out of poverty. On the other hand, the government is saying that we are giving free ration to people. Why? Because there is a lot of procurement going on of wheat and rice. So they have to give it to somebody, although people don't need it. So we have to get out of this cycle where we are claiming both, that we have reduced poverty and also we are giving free grains. So this is what the writer is talking about. Further, the writer is saying that the government has another role to play in this MSP business. The government has a role to play that it needs to basically balance the market out. It needs to get out of this subsidy and other business. It needs to invest in information symmetry and physical infrastructure. This is very important, that they should work on infrastructure rather than working on subsidies. Further, it says that they can also invest in facilitating the building of efficient value chain through institutional innovation that minimizes the price spread between farmer and consumers. Further, it says that they can help promote future markets and options that try to minimize the risk and help farmer make planting decision based on what future prices are likely to be, rather than basing them on a last year prices. This is the forward looking scenario that will align with what India choose to be with respect to 1991 reforms. In short, the writer is saying that in 1991, the way we freed other things from the clutches of the government, we should free the agriculture also. We should let go the hand holding attitude and we should give market a chance. Further, we can talk about is the developing of competitive agriculture market, meaning that let the prices go according to the market and let the best prices come to the farmer. Maybe way of ENAM or let's say APMC. Outside APMC, they should try to have a better connectivity. We should develop the logistical chain. Further, we can talk about flexible import-export policies. So lately, you have seen that we have banned, let's say, onion export to Bangladesh. That should not happen. We ban, let's say, we ban the sugar exports also sometimes. So we should not do that. We should let the open market come to India. we will see it will settle up. Then we should promote crop diversification. This will basically ensure the reduction on fertilizer subsidy. This will ensure that we get the maximum productivity out of our land. Further, we can talk about modern technology and digital solutions. There are many things. For example, PM SVAMITVA Scheme. This used drone technology to create GIS based maps of land. So we can use a lot of technology. Further, it says that introduce income support mechanisms like PM Kisan. So PM Kisan, you all know, a scheme where 6,000 rupees a year is provided to all farmers. Whoever owns a land, they are provided 6,000 rupees a year. Further, encourage private sector participation. We should encourage contract farming, at least some form of involvement of private sector in terms of, let's say, credit availability or specialization or research at least. So these are all reforms which we can suggest. Moving ahead, there is one more reform which often been talked about. It is legalizing the MSP need and issues. So what is the need of legalizing MSP? The need is that farmers want a legally protected right for themselves in order to protect against the uncertainties and risks. Further, this legal protection will encourage the diversification of crops. For example, let's say if government legally provides for a provision that farmers will get so and so MSP and procurement for not only cereals but lentils also. What will happen? People will start growing lentils. We will have, let's say, horticulture MSP. That will ensure that diversification takes place. So we can ensure diversification through legalizing the MSP. Further, we will establish a baseline market price. If you put a legal thing on MSP, then that will create a baseline market price. Below that, it will not go. Further, we will have alleviate the rural distress. Rural distress is there because there is no legal sanction to the MSP, and it is not mandatory for the government to procure from the farmer. So small and marginal farmer, they do not have anywhere to sell because they don't have enough production. Moving ahead, legal entitlement for farmer. So we have discussed this. So this is the need for legalizing MSP. If we talk about the issues with legalization, then you can see that it will improve the burden, the excessive burden on the fiscal resources of the government. It will also shift the crop production patterns, as in many crops will be favored by the farmers in spite they not being ecologically favorable to the farm. Point in case is Punjab and Haryana. They are not very, let's say, suitable for paddy farming, but the paddy is grown there, and that has led to extraction of groundwater to a brim, and the groundwater tables are down largely in these areas. Further, what issues can arise? Issue of food inflation can arise. So if there is 1% rise in MSP, economists say that the inflation rises by 15 base points. So if there is 1% rise in MSP, the inflation rises by 15 base point. We have seen earlier, within 10 years, the MSP has risen by almost 100%, 80%. Now think the impact on inflation it has. So 1:15 ratio is there. If 80% rise is there in 10 years, the inflation might have risen out of 15 times more. So rise in food inflation will be there. Then economic unsustainability is there. Market disruptions are there. Market forces are going somewhere else. Then MSP will take them somewhere else. Negative impact on agriculture exports. Why? Because agriculture exports are driven by international marketing prices, but our MSP will distort them. Further, conflict with WTO subsidies. There is a question for you. The question is, MSP is which kind of subsidy? There are different kinds of subsidies in WTO. Amber box, green box, all these subsidies are there. MSP is which kind of subsidy? You will answer it. So there is a conflict with WTO subsidy regulations. Then demands from allied agriculture sector. If you make MSP legal for, let's say, cereals, the horticulture sector will ask for the legalization of MSP there. Challenges in crop storage and disposal. You know that FCI stores almost all the wheat and paddy crops, and there is 4 to 5% loss every year to that stored food grain, and it is very huge loss. So we have a storage, crop storage and disposal issue in India. Now let's come to way forward. So I'll give you a question on MSP. Basically, you need to discuss minimum support price and how MSP will rescue farmers from low income trap. On that question, I'll give you a way forward. The way forward is very easy. The writer talks about that we have become a digital economy, largely a digital economy. So we can basically better target people who need this subsidy. Largely the large farmers who hold a lot of land, they produce enough to sell in the market. The 85% farmers which own around 1 hectare or less than 1 hectare land, they do not use this MSP facility because they do not produce enough to sell in the APMC market. Only the large farmers, they secure this MSP price. So what we can do is we can use this digital economy, we can target better. Further, this writer says that we can aggregate input subsidy support should be provided to needy farmers on a per hectare basis. This should be accompanied by freeing up the pricing of food as well as input like fertilizers and power. The efficiency gain and saving are going to be large. So the writer is talking about that if we free up the agriculture sector, then we will gain a lot because of efficiencies, and that gain can basically help us achieve the developed India 2047. So the writer is saying, let us not go into the electoral winning mode where we provide these MSPs, announce these MSPs and subsidies to gain votes, rather than we should do the actual reform and benefit the farmer. So on that note, try solving this question. This came in mains 2018, and also try to solve this prelims question, which also is a PYQ. So with that, we will jump to the next topic. So the next article in the decoded section relates to cyber security, or more specifically the tele frauds which you have been seeing or listening about recently. When you call nowadays, you hear a long message by the Home Ministry which says that if you are getting any calls for any award or any big payment that has happened in your account, or any other spam call which tries to exploit the vulnerable people and try to fraud them, the Home Ministry has been warning through that message. So this article is relating to that, and I believe that such a big issue can be a potential question in mains also, not just prelims. In mains, there is syllabus, internal security and cyber security is there. So this will be very important for you to prepare. The reasons why people fall for those, what kind of different cyber crimes are there, what the government is doing, what can be done, what are the global practices, and you can practice a little question over it. So let's jump into this article and the discussion of the topic. So in past, UPSC has asked questions on these cyber crimes, and they have asked about institutional framework in to addressing technological legal basically solutions to solve this cybercrime challenges. So enough with the PYQs. Now let's jump into first and foremost the structure of TRAI. So why we are discussing TRAI? Because TRAI is the organization which regulates the telecom sector in India. And the purpose of TRAI is to protect consumers' interest, promote fair competition, create a level playing field, and enable India to be a leader in the global information society. This is a very important organization. It has members, it has a chairman, and at least 2 full-time members are there. And these members should have knowledge in telecom, finance, law, and more. And these all members are appointed by central government. This is basic about TRAI. What are the functions of TRAI? So TRAI is considered an organization which is responsible for regulating telecommunication services like ISP, the mobile phone services, and the other services. It sets and revises tariffs. It issues order and directives on tariffs. It further ensures compliance with license norms, and it revokes a license. It recommends new service providers. So all things related to telecom is regulated by TRAI. Moving ahead, what are spam calls? Now our topic starts. So you can introduce your answer on spam calls or telecalls from this definition of spam calls. You can say that these are unsolicited phone calls usually done by a robot on a bulk to seek sensitive information from people who are vulnerable to these calls and to basically scam them by stealing their identity and location. So these are spam calls. What are different types of cyber attacks or spam calls or methods to exploit people? So there are phishing methods, phishing. These are methods where people, or let's say hackers or fraudsters, they try to phish for username and passwords using a fake ID for themselves. They will pretend like a bank or a government agency, and then they will seek your personal information in order to steal your identity and then do the fraud. So there are different types of phishings. If it is done over voice, it is called wishing. If it is done over SMS, it is called smashing. If it is done targetedly for you or any organization, it is called spear phishing. Spear phishing, basically you are targeting somebody specially, and what you will do, you will use their identity or their sensitive information in order for them to believe that you are right. And then there are bank frauds like loan frauds, investment frauds, and payment frauds usually seen in UPI. And there are other category of frauds like tech support scams, usually happens in USA, and Indians are infamous for this tele support fraud, where they will call that we are speaking from Microsoft, and then they will get them install some program like TeamViewer, and then they will basically try to exploit their bank accounts. Then there are prize frauds. Prize has been like KBC. There will be a message from KBC, Amitabh Bachchan, and you will win something, and then you have to submit some money for the transaction to take place. Then job scams are there. There is this infamous case of people who were employed by Indian Railways fraudulently, not by Indian Railway but other people, and they have given a lot of bribes, and they worked on station also, but later got to know that it was a job scam. So there are multiple scams. These scams also run in Indian Army. Like Indian Army, somebody will pretend like somebody who is hiring for Indian Army, then the vulnerable youth will apply there, and then they will give money for them. And Indian Army actively work to avoid such frauds. They advertise for it and try to prevent people from getting defrauded. What are the status of cyber crimes in India, if you ask? Then on this portal, the 1930, the National Cyber Crime Reporting Portal, it has reported around 740,000 cyber frauds within 4 months of 2024. And the number of cyber crime complaints has been increasing significantly since 2019. The majority of these frauds are in financial online frauds, whereby the fraud take place on a payment app or somewhere. Now victims were targeted for investment fraud, gaming apps, algorithm manipulations, illegal lending apps, sextortion, and OTP scams. Further, government in 2024 have disabled around 7 lakh SIM cards in around 1,32,000 IMEIs. You know what is IMEIs or SIM? In comment section, tell the full form of SIM and IMEI. What is the full form of these two words? There is a homework for you. What initiatives have been taken by TRAI and government to curb all these cyber frauds or curb the tele frauds? So TRAI has implemented do not disturb services long back, but now they have updated it. So earlier you were sending an SMS DND to not Daily News Decoded, but do not disturb. You were sending this SMS and your number will be registered to not receive calls, but later on some bypass mechanism were developed by these people. So it has updated in 2024 that now in apps these companies have to provide a service for DND. This is a good step. Then collaborating with external agency to expand this DND list, and then further it has introduced blockchain based distributed ledger technology into this. So for example, you are a company, you want to send a commercial message SMS to many people. you have to register or let's say log that message on a ledger, on a shared ledger. If you understand what blockchain means, then many people will be approving that message, that okay, this is an approved message by this company, it will have a format, it will have a number, it will have an ID, and that message will only be sent to the people. So this is blockchain, use of blockchain in this. And then regulatory enforcement via TCC CPR, that is Telecom Commercial Communication Customer Preference Regulations 2018. In this regulation, TRAI tries to penalize and punish people who are not adhering to these norms. It also tries to combat fraudulent spams and international spam majorly from countries like Pakistan, Nigeria. All these countries are infamous for, including India also to a certain extent, for these crimes. What are government initiatives? Government has created a nodal agency named Digital Intelligence Unit. This agency is responsible for all these kind of tele frauds. Further, Telecom Analytics for Fraud Management and Consumer Protection, that is TAF COP. This website is very important. You should go today on this website, that is TAF COP, and check in your name how many SIMs are there. You can check it. If you input your number, there will be an OTP. You will input that OTP and then you will know how many phone numbers are there on your ID. So this will prevent fraudulent activities. Reserve Bank of India has issues two things. One is Ombudsman scheme, whereby you can report any fraud to this ombudsman and they will take care. And then secondly, it has issued many guidelines such as two-factor authentication for payments. You have to authenticate twice. You will get two things to approve it. Then alert. If any fraudulent activity takes place on your account, in your account, the bank has to alert you. So these two guidelines have been there. Then KYC norms. You all know that before issuing a SIM card, you have to do KYC verification. Further, you have to re-verify using your government ID or your Aadhaar. Then there are two other things. Public awareness campaigns and some institutions have been established. So public awareness campaigns like Cyber Surakshit Bharat and then certain like institution have been established. If you look at the challenges and concerns, so you know that all these telecommunication, all these fraud activities are technology driven. They are very innovative in it, and the law enforcement or the people, they do not evolve as fast as these fraudsters evolve. So there is lack of awareness first of all, and then there is lack of infrastructure. Although when it comes to GCI, that is Global Cyber Security Index, India has achieved the tier 1 status. Out of 100, India has scored around 98% marks. But still, we face this challenge of insufficient cybersecurity infrastructure, because by 2033, we will be having 1 trillion cyber attacks on India. So we need to have an updated infrastructure every year, every minute. And further, legal and regulatory responses are very slow. They do not respond to it. Try registering a complaint for cyber security. They will not respond. They will respond very delayed. Then our IT Act is also very old. It is of 2000. So we have to have a new IT Act. So this is a legal delay. And then rapid technological advancement. So all these cyber fraudsters, they adopt to AI, blockchain and every new technology that is there in the market. But the government agencies or the consumers, they are not adopting to it. Now lack of coordination is there among different stakeholders. For example, if the fraud is of international stature or let's say international level, then there will be no coordination between that platform and the government and the consumer. And if there are 2-3 organizations involved, then there will be lack of coordination between these organizations. Now under reporting of the cybercrime, because of stigma, because of getting infamous on social media, people do not report to these cybercrimes. Then there is talent shortage in the cyber security. There are around 40,000 pending vacancies in the police department. Then complex digital ecosystem. So digital ecosystems are very complex, and then for example, if somebody defrauds somebody of let's say 50,000 rupees, they will spread that money in 500 each into 20,000 of different accounts. What that will take place? That will ensure that a complex digital ecosystem is created. So all these are issues and challenges. If you talk about what solution can be there, then you can think of the opposite of these challenges. So for example, if you want to write the solutions, then you can go for that awareness campaign should be there, Surakshit Bharat, Cyber Surakshit Bharat, then cyber security infrastructure investment should be done. All these things can be said in opposite way also. Now moving ahead, what are the global best practices for awareness? Australia's ACC, that is Australian Competition Consumer Commission, in real time issues information about the new spams and try to protect the consumers by making them aware. Then there is anti-phishing working group in the US. This working group is an example of coordination among government, consumers and the banks. So this is a good example of coordination. All these organizations coordinate. Then there is Interpol Cybercrime Directorate. This organization tries to coordinate and train different people around international arena for to fight cybercrime. Try this question and solving it, and you can check your knowledge. This is what are spam telecalls, why we have seen a surge in the crime related to spam telecalls, suggest some measures to curtail them. I hope you will solve this question. Let's jump to the next part of our discussion. So in simplified section, the first article is SVAMITVA Scheme. This scheme is very important because it is providing land records to village people. Whether they own a house, whether they own a land, this scheme is using technology and providing them some kind of land record that will pave the way for them to access credit and other things. So let us discuss this scheme in details. It will come under your GS2 and GS3 section. GS2 government policies for vulnerable section, and in GS3 it will come under land reforms. So recently Prime Minister Modi has distributed lakhs of these SVAMITVA card to many people, and let us discuss a little bit about this scheme. So it is named SVAMITVA, which literally translates to ownership. And in this scheme there is a survey that is going on in villages for mapping. We are using technologies like drone, or let's say the GPS system, to create a map, an accurate map, and then based on that map we will be providing these property record of rights. It aims to provide a record of right to those having a house in villages and issue them a property card. It is a central sector scheme and it comes under Ministry of Panchayati Raj. The plan is to survey all the rural properties using drones and prepare GIS based map of each village. This is very important, that the plan is to survey all the properties in the villages. Launched by Prime Minister Modi on 24 April 2020. 24 April 2020, or let's say 24 April is also Panchayati Raj Day. Now there are certain questions which I want to ask you. What are the amendments that are connected with Panchayati Raj institution? First thing. Second thing, I will ask that agriculture, or let's say land, comes under which list? Union list, state list, or concurrent list? These are two questions which you should answer in the comment box. Moving ahead, what will be the benefits of this scheme? It will be a financial asset. That card will be a financial asset, and it can also help the panchayat to determine the property tax. That property tax directly comes under Panchayati Raj institutions, and also it will help liquidification of the land parcels, and it will increase the financial credit availability to the farmers. Further, it will be creating accurate land records. So it is an issue in Indian rural areas that we do not have accurate land records. Also, we do not have records for us to able to get the credit from the bank. So these issues will be resolved. Moving ahead, what kind of technology it is using? It is using geospatial technology. Geospatial technology is basically you are using GPS to create a map. So you will try to create a boundary based on location, and that will be owned by you. So we will use geo positioning system and geospatial technology, and further we will use this data to analyze, and we will do analysis, data processing over this collected data on global positioning system GPS, and we will do certain feature extractions. So here is this was the PM SVAMITVA scheme. I'll give you a question on this. Try to solve this question and submit your answer in the comment section. Let us jump to the next topic. So the next article is related to International Labour Organization. There has been a report released by ILO, namely Global Estimates on International Migrant Workers report. You might have guessed it. It's a report on international migrant workers. A lot of population from India travels to West Asia, America, Europe, Russia, Canada, all over the world. We are one of the biggest supplier of human beings. So this report becomes a little bit important for us. And in any ways, ILO is very important. UPSC has already asked question in prelims on ILO and its conventions. We will see all the conventions and what conventions has India signed already. We will also see what this report says about international migrants, and you can use it in your mains also. This data is not just relevant for prelims. This comes under GS2, international relations, and international, or let's say United Nations bodies. You can also cover it in this section, UN bodies. So let's talk about the report or the article. The report says that the international migrants are the people who are solving two problems. One problem that they are supplying labor to the host nation. So recently we have seen a question on demographic winter, or we have seen Elon Musk talk about the fertility rate going down so much that countries may not survive in future. Japan is a prime example, South Korea is a prime example, Italy is a prime example. US without its open migration policy would have been that example, might have been that example. India is also seeing a steady growth now. China is seeing a decline in population gradually, and the population will become old. So all these migrant people, migrant laborers, immigrant migrant laborers, they supply labor to the host nation, and they also contribute back the remittances to the developing nation, largely the developing nations. So these are solving two problems. ILO has prepared this report on these people, and it has divided it into different filters. The first filter that ILO talks about, this report talks about, is that what is the percentage of these workers in terms of the whole labor force around the world. So it says that around 4.7% is made up of IMs, international migrants. But it is 30 million more than 2013, meaning that it has grown up. It has grown up. Further, this report says that between 2019 to 22, the rate of growth dipped annually to less than 1%. So the rate of growth has reduced, maybe because of pandemic, maybe because of other issues, or let's say there is a rise of protectionism, or there is a rise of right-wing politics in Europe, in America. So there might be an issue of that. The second filter which ILO applies in this report is the age filter and the gender filter. You will be surprised to know that the share of women in international migrants has risen since this data has been compiled. So ILO has started preparing this data very recently, and by then the share of women has been rising, but the share is not equal to men. Around 61.3% are men and around 38% are women. So there is a disparity. It is because the share of population of women in the international migrants is less, meaning less women go for migration for work across country. More men are traveling. Further, this report says that that aged between 25 and 54, that is prime age. So this is gender, and now it is talking about age. Age, it says that 25 to 54 forms the largest stock of these international migrants. It gives a number, but it is not that important, around 75%. But you remember that young population, young men travel more across country to seek employment. and they form the largest portion of the international migrants. Further, it says that which kind of economic sector these migrants go to. So it is the services sector where these migrants go to, and they outnumber the host population in service sector. Case in example may be Indians going to US for all these IT jobs, or Mexican traveling to US for these manual work in building houses, in cleaning, in other manual jobs, maybe agricultural job, which the native population will not prefer to do because of low wages and hard work. So in services sector, migrants outnumber the host country. And further interesting thing is that women outnumber the men in service sector. So around 80% of the international migrants are women in service sector. So this is very interesting. Further, this report talks about the host countries, the most popular host countries. So these are not surprisingly the high income countries, the Europe, Americas and West Asian countries, and they form respectively 23%, 22% and 13% of international laborers or migrants. Let's discuss a little bit about ILO, because UPSC might ask question from here in prelims. It is very important that you remember carefully all the facts about ILO. The interesting fact is that it is established since 1919 by the Treaty of Versailles, where the World War I ended. In 1946, ILO became the first specialized agency of the United Nations. Here is a question for you. How many specialized bodies are there when it comes to United Nations? You comment in the comment section. It is also part of United Nations Development Program. It is the only tripartite UN agency where representatives of labor, the employers and the government sit together on equal footing, and they can represent themselves equally. It is the only organization. So it is very important to remember. Further, it is headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. Here is a map of Switzerland, Geneva. On the western side, it is situated. There are 187 members, and remember, it has won Nobel Prize in 1969. UPSC might ask a question by stating a big statement saying that an organization which is the first specialized body of the UN won a Nobel Peace Prize in 1969, and it is one of the only organization where three parties sit together with equal footing. Which of the following organization is mentioned in the question? And they will give you 4 options, you have to answer. So there can be a question like that. What are the conventions of ILO? There are 8 fundamental conventions of ILO. These are Forced Labor Convention, Abolition of Forced Labor Convention, Equal Remuneration Convention, Discrimination Convention, Minimum Age, Worst Form of Child Labor Convention. These 6 are very important because they are ratified by India also. The last 2, that is Freedom of Association and Protection of Right to Organize Convention and Right to Organize and Collective Bargaining Convention, these 2 are not ratified. Remember, these 2 are not ratified, these 2, 7th and 8th. Baki sign Q है 1 to 6. So consider this question for prelims and try to solve this and put your answers in the comment sections. Let's see who gets it right. We'll jump to the next article. The next article is related to Indian grey wolf. It is in news because we are trying to protect it. It is endangered, and recently 8 pups are born in one of the wildlife sanctuary. This is one of the wolf sanctuary. This is Bankapur in Karnataka. Bankapur wolf sanctuary, and it is also saying that only 50% of these cubs are, or let's say wolf pups survive, not cubs, pups survive. So out of 8, probably 4 will survive, and it comes under GS3, Environment and Ecology. Further on these Indian grey wolf, a little bit knowledge based on PYQs, what PYQs has been asking on these species. We have prepared some data for you. So it is a subspecies of grey wolf, ranges from Southwest Asia to Indian subcontinent, the whole Pakistan and in Iran and all that area till Indian subcontinent. Then travels in smaller packs around 6 to 8 people, and it is nocturnal and hunts from dusk to dawn. So UPSC has asked question, which of the following species is not nocturnal or nocturnal? UPSC has asked, so remember it is a nocturnal species. The habitat, it is important to remember what is the habitat, because more often than not the challenge for survival comes from habitat loss. So the habitat is basically scrubs, grasslands and semi-arid pastoral agro ecosystem, usually falling outside the protected area. Here lies the problem. The protected areas, national park, wildlife sanctuary, all these are not containing the areas where these wolf prey. So what will happen? Human wolf conflict will be there and they will be hunted down. Even during British period, these wolves were considered vermins and they were hunted down. Gestation period is around 62 to 75 days, and they live in warmer conditions, basically Indian conditions. And if you talk about the conservation status and in IUCN status, they are endangered. In CITES, they are Appendix 1. So remember this, and Wildlife Protection Act, they comes under Schedule 1. Remember all these facts because they may be asked. Threats: habitat loss and depletion of the prey species. Only 50% of the pups survive. So there is a challenge at the birth also. Now Indian grey wolf, there is another slide for you. The protected areas, there are two protected areas. One is in Karnataka, the other is in Mahuvadanar. In Karnataka, the Bankapur Wolf Wildlife Sanctuary is there. It is a dryland. Fauna is usual. Indian grey wolves are there, striped hyenas are there, jackals are there, foxes are there, smaller mammals are there. But in the Mahuvadanar Wolf Wildlife Sanctuary in Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh border, Indian wolf, sloth bear, sambar deer, chital deer, nilgai, wolf bear, Indian hare is found. Consider this question, try to attempt it, and put it your answer in the comment sections. We will see. Thank you for the discussion. We will meet you again tomorrow.